The Six is evil debate has been a very interesting topic for a lot of the fandom ever since, spoiler alert, she dropped Mono. And not only that instance, we were also a little bit took back when Six took revenge on one of the bullies in the school level, and also her snapping the fingers from the mannequins in the doctor's level. So before we get into it, this video is going to be talking about the Little Nightmares IP in its entirety, so if you're not caught up, I suggest you do that now before we continue, unless you're okay with spoilers. Oh, and also if you enjoy Little Nightmares and enjoy videos like this and theories and everything else in between, make sure you hit subscribe as I do cover Little Nightmares extensively. Anyway, Six being evil has never sat with me fully. I often sit on the fence that Six is doing what she does just to survive the nowhere, like many of the children inside it. But because of her actions, some fans deem her evil. Now, at the surface, I can understand this. They do look questionable actions and they are just outright wrong. But that doesn't mean we can't look at it from both sides. And while recently I've had some thoughts on the topic, and I think it does show what Tarsier Studios and Bandai Namco were amazing for telling Six's story and everything that partnered with that. So in this video, we're going to be talking heavily about someone called Friedrich Nietzsche. Now, I am not the best at pronouncing that, so if anyone is in the comments, let me know how I've done. Nietzsche was born a German philosopher and had written many books, one of which was Beyond Good and Evil, first published in 1886. And so in other words, it's a very long discussion. In a very short summary, Nietzsche argues that the concepts of good and evil are culturally constructed, rather than inherently true. Different cultures develop different moral laws in order to maintain social order. Personally, I've never read the book and I'm not massively familiar with the philosophy of it, so I am just taking certain parts from it because they are quite an interesting piece, and, or as you'll find out in a minute, the quotes are more interesting. So I'll stay away from all that in-depth stuff because, again, no idea what I'm on about. But what I'm interested in is a quote that he provided. "He who fights with monsters might take care lest he thereby become a monster, and if you gaze for long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you." So why is that important in the world of Little Nightmares, and what does it even mean? Well, in my take, it might be different to others. I believe that he who fights with monsters might take care lest he thereby become a monster is that the more you fight an enemy, be that whoever or whatever it is, be careful that you might not be so used to it that you become them. As, again, you are so used to fighting them, you lose yourself in the process. For, and if you gaze for long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you. I believe in this instance, the longer you stay in the world of the darkness, the more likely you are to find comfort in it. And again, that applies to the Little Nightmares point of view. Imagine being trapped inside the nowhere for a silly amount of time that you don't even recall when you first entered. How will the nowhere twist and warp your view on the world? Better yet, what would even happen if you made it back to the counties or outside of the nowhere again? So, of course, for Little Nightmares, the abyss is the nowhere, and the monsters are the residents, and we've seen Six on both sides of this quote. For instance, Mono's companion and friend trying to escape the nowhere, trying to survive, but then also Six has succumbed to the signal tower, and we've also seen her on the side of the residents and what her twisted view is. Again, I bring it back to the quote. It just seems so fitting for Six, considering how we've seen her as a friend, we've actually seen her as a monster, and we saw her do things that would never be okay. But in the world of the nowhere, perhaps it is. Perhaps Dark Six is this visual representation of her splitting from her original Six herself to more of what the darkness or the nowhere has morphed her into. Perhaps the hunger wasn't necessarily a hunger for food, but more of a hunger to be a part of the world. Now, it might not have necessarily been Six, as in the Six that traveled to the Nowhere, but the one that was manifested and created inside the Nowhere. That one wants to step outside and really start leading the way. Something interesting about that too, on the back of it, is that if you talk about colour, Six, as we know from the Maw and every other game, has the yellow raincoat, and you know, she sticks out like a sore thumb in the Nowhere, and I believe it's all metaphorical, it's all visual. But Dark Six blends right in. She looks like she belongs there. So again, it's a very interesting sort of display, and I think it really highlights this kind of personality split within herself. But I did touch upon it earlier, and it also brings another interesting question. How long has Six actually been in the Nowhere? Well, with that quote in mind, we know that Six has been in the Nowhere for a long time. Not to mention that she's been part of nearly all the Little Nightmares content, apart from perhaps the new comics and the Sounds of Nightmares that we're aware of. Again, we know that time doesn't particularly play well in the world of the Nowhere, so perhaps we can't quite put a numerical value on it per se. But again, being part of every game, and she's being part of many other children's stories, means she's been there for a long time. So to say that Six has been corrupted and become dark by the Nowhere, and that all the monsters she has faced, is a fair point. But I think we also have to conclude that she has indeed become used to the Nowhere, and now what she thinks is morally good and evil is a blurred line of grey, doing only what she needs to do to survive. So the title Six is Evil or Six is Wrong perhaps is a little harsh. Six more than likely has forgotten who she once was, due to the twisted world of the Nowhere. In a sense of Little Nightmares, I think we might even get to see more children similar to her, and how the children are affected by this relentless world of the Nowhere. Before the Nowhere, more than likely she was a happy kid, but being in the Nowhere again has changed that. Again, it also leads to an interesting conversation about, well, if they do escape the Nowhere, what then? Will they carry those burdens, those darknesses through with them into the counties, or whether ever they end up in the universe of Little Nightmares, and will it change them? Anyway, food for thought. But let me know what you think in the comments. It's only a small video today, not necessarily a theory, but more like a discussion. I like the topic of Six being evil. I think it's quite interesting. Again, I think it's more of a perspective deal. I don't think it's team yes or team no in that sense. I think it's all about her experiences and how she's had to cope with that. I'd love to see sort of Bandai and Supermassive Games expand upon that, maybe a little bit further outside of the Nowhere. I'm hoping that the end of the trailer is what that sort of a hint towards. I think that would be really interesting. But again, let me know what you think in the comments below. And don't worry, there will be more Little Nightmares content coming your way in the future. I have just been a bit busy lately, as I usually explain, but I do have some videos planned, and I've also got the Little Nightmares meme video to do, so again, look out for that. But of course, if you want to get notified for that, hit subscribe, do all the usual. It really helps me in the channel and keeps me going. So again, let me know what you think in the comments below about Evil Six and what side of the fence you're on, or if you think there should be a fence at all. All I know is that Little Nightmares has given us trust issues, so it's probably best to talk as a group about it. And again, leave a comment below, do all the usual YouTube stuff. But more importantly, have a lovely morning, day or night, wherever you are in the world. Stay safe, and I will see you all in the next Little Nightmares theory video. Bye-bye.